What if spiritual awakening is not about leaving the body, but learning how to come all the way back in? There is something I keep noticing in spiritual spaces. Many people are deeply aware. They have language, they have insight, they can name the wound, the trauma response, the archetype, the astrology, and the lesson. And yet, something still does not feel integrated. Something still doesn't feel lived. Something still doesn't feel grounded in the body. And I think this is because many of us enter the spiritual path already disconnected from the body and then try to awaken through the very part of us that learned how to leave: the mind. The mind isn't wrong, and the mind is not the enemy. The mind has a place. It can witness, it can name, it can interpret, it can remember. It can help us become conscious of our patterns. But the mind isn't the instrument that processes life directly. The body is. The body senses. The body receives. The body knows what state we are actually in. The body knows when we are grounded or bracing, open or overwhelmed, present or performing, resting or collapsing, moving from aliveness or moving from fear. And this is where I think many of us have it backwards. We try to make sense of life through the mind, but the sense begins in the body. The body is the instrument of perception. The mind interprets through the condition of that instrument. So if the body is exhausted, braced, sick, afraid, overstimulated, disconnected, or caught in survival, the mind will perceive through that state. It may search for certainty, it may analyze, it may override, it may spiritualize, it may create another identity around awakening, healing, purpose, or consciousness. It may sound wise, it may sound familiar, it may sound like truth. But if the body is not connected, grounded, and able to remain present with what is actually here, then the mind may simply be organizing itself around disconnection. This is why I believe embodiment is not an accessory to awakening. It isn't a side practice, and it isn't something we add after the insight. Embodiment is where awakening becomes real, because spiritual awakening isn't only about realizing something. It is about becoming able to live with what has been realized. And that requires a body. It requires capacity, and it requires contact. It requires a nervous system that can stay in relationship with truth without immediately escaping into control, urgency, fantasy, disassociation, or spiritual explanation. This is why when I speak about coming back home into the body, I mean something very specific. I mean returning to the place where life is actually being experienced, not the idea of life, not the story about life, not the spiritual interpretation of life, but life as it is moving through the breath, through the senses, through the belly, the chest, the throat, the skin, the nervous system, the ground beneath us. And I know that for many people, this can feel confusing, especially for those who have spent years in spiritual places. Because many teachings speak about transcending the body, rising above the body, realizing the body is not ultimately who we are. And there may be truth in some of that. But if we use that truth to abandon the body, then it becomes bypassing, because the body may not be who we are in the most absolute sense, but it is where we are. It is where life is happening. It is where our conditioning is stored. It is where our survival patterns live. It is where our breath contracts. It is where our energy opens or closes. It is where our yes and no begin. It is where our capacity is built. It is where our awakening has to land. The body becomes an obstacle only when we keep trying to fix, force, or change our perspective without first tending to the instrument through which perspective is being formed. A clear mind doesn't come from abandoning the body. A clear mind comes when the body feels safe enough, grounded enough, nourished and nurtured enough, and present enough for perception to clear. This is why state matters. The same thought can arise from different places. The same action can come from different states. Rest can come from presence, or it can come from collapse. Movement can come from aliveness, or it can come from fear. Discipline can come from devotion, or it can come from self abandonment. Healing can come from listening, or it can come from urgency. And this is where discernment becomes more complex. It isn't always enough to ask, is this true? Is this helpful? Is this spiritual? We have to ask, from what state am I perceiving this? From what state am I choosing this? From what state am I trying to heal? Because when the body is rushed, depleted, afraid, sick, overstimulated, or caught in survival, the mind often takes the path of least resistance. It leaves, it explains, it manages, it goes somewhere else. And sometimes that gives us temporary relief. Sometimes it helps us survive the moment. Sometimes it is the only thing we know how to do. But if we keep living our healing through the mind alone, we may never actually return to the place that needs to be met. This is where sickness has taught me so much. When the body is sick, energy changes. Prana contracts. Life force gathers inward. The body reserves energy for restoration, repair, rest, and healing. There is intelligence in that contraction. The body is not failing because it slows down. The body is doing what it knows how to do. But the mind may not trust that. The mind may say, I have to get better quickly. I have to get back to work. I can't afford to rest. I should be more productive. I should be past this by now. These needs are inconvenient. And these are real concerns. Food, money, work, responsibility, survival. These are not imaginary. The body exists in the material world. But when healing becomes organized around urgency, survival, and the demand to become functional again as quickly as possible, the body can be overridden in the same name of getting better. Then healing becomes another form of pressure. Efficiency becomes the goal. Productivity becomes the proof. Readiness becomes something we perform before the body has actually returned. And what looks like recovery may still be organized around the same survival state that contributed to the disconnection in the first place. This is why the body must be included, not as something to conquer, not as something to transcend, not as something to ignore until it becomes inconvenient, but as the living instrument through which we perceive, process, integrate, and embody our experiences. This is also why I use energy tools through the body. Breath isn't just a concept. Breath is contact. Breath is rhythm. Breath is relationship with prana. Breath brings us back to the place where life is actually moving. Sound, movement, stillness, touch, ritual, nature, astrology, meditation, yoga. These can all become ways of returning to the body when they are practiced as relationship, not escape, because energy doesn't integrate through information alone. Experience doesn't integrate because we understood it mentally. Awakening doesn't become embodied because we had the insight. Integration happens when the body can hold the truth for what has been seen, when the breath can stay with it, when the nervous system can remain in relationship, when the senses can return, when the ground can be felt again, when awareness becomes something lived, not just something known. This is what I call involution, the journey inward before evolution can truly take form. Involution requires a body. It requires preparation, slowness. It requires the willingness to meet the places where we have misidentified with the mind, the ego, the wound, the pattern, the role, the belief, the story, or the spiritual identity. And this isn't always comfortable. Yoga has taught me that the path isn't only expansion, it is preparation, purification, discernment. It is the steady return to what is actually here. It is learning how to gather attention back into the body so the mind can become clear enough to serve rather than lead from fear. Because the goal is not to destroy the mind, the goal is right relationship. Mind, body, spirit, the soul, not as separate parts competing for control, but as an integrated whole. And in that integration, the mind can become a beautiful instrument, but it cannot replace the body. The body is where we sense, the body is where we ground, the body is where we digest experience, the body is where we learn capacity, the body is where we discover what is true beneath the noise. And this is why, for me, awakening isn't an escape from the body. It is the return to the body with enough presence, humility, and devotion to realize the body was part of the path all along. This is the conversation I want to be in because I know many of us are sensing something underneath, something shifting, something asking for change, something asking for truth, something asking not only for awakening, but for embodiment. And for me, awakening isn't about collecting more information or creating another spiritual identity. It isn't about using astrology, energy, the planets, or the body as another way to define ourselves more rigidly. It is about creating space, space between who we are and what we have been identified with, space between the self with a capital S and the pattern, space between the body and the contraction, space between the present moment and the old story that wants to take over. This is one of the gifts astrology has given me. It has helped me understand energy without immediately making it personal. It has helped me see what is being activated without collapsing into shame, fear, urgency, or identity. It has given me language, yes, but more than that, it has given me space. And that space matters because when something is triggered, it isn't random. Something is being activated, something is asking to be met. But if the body is not grounded enough to stay with it, the mind often takes over. It tries to make sense of the discomfort before the body has had a chance to process the experience. And this is where I had to learn the difference between intellectualizing and integrating. There were so many times I thought I was making sense of something, when really I had left my body. I had moved into the mind because what I was feeling was uncomfortable, unfamiliar, and too much to meet without ground. But making sense of life doesn't only happen through the mind. It happens through the body. The body processes life as energy. The body processes emotion as energy. The body knows how to move what the mind keeps trying to explain. And sometimes, when we allow the body to process what it is moving through us, we realize we do not need to add more language to it. We don't need to build another story around it. We don't need to make it mean something about who we are. Sometimes the body just needs space. Space to feel, to breathe, to tremble, to soften, space to release, space to recognize this may have moved through me, but it isn't all of me. The space itself can be the medicine. The breath that becomes available after something moves can be the medicine. The room inside the body can be the medicine. And this is why slowing down can feel so disorienting at first. When we have lived in urgency, survival, distraction, or mental movement for a long, long time, slowing down can almost feel like what I call vertigo. Like the body doesn't yet know how to orient without speed. Like the stillness is unfamiliar. Like coming home to ourselves feels strange because we have been away for so long. But that doesn't mean that slowness is wrong. It means the body is learning a new rhythm, a rhythm that is not based on escape, a rhythm that is not based on pressure, a rhythm that is not based on proving, performing, or forcing readiness, a rhythm that allows life to move through us without requiring us to become everything we feel. And maybe this is what true embodiment asks of us: not to rush the insight, not to bypass the body, not to turn every experience into a lesson before it has been felt, but to create enough space for the body to process what the mind has been trying to carry alone. This is the ground I want to begin from, because as we move into admitos, we are moving into the language of compression, stillness, containment, delay, endurance, and the places where energy has been held for a long time. And if we approach those places only with the mind, we may try to force them open. We may try to understand them too quickly. We may turn them into another identity. But admitos asks us for something slower, something more honest, more embodied. It asks us to listen to what has been held, to honor the intelligence of what went still, to build the capacity for movement to return from the inside. So, this conversation isn't only about astrology. It is about grounding spiritual awakening. It is about using energy tools through the body, not away from the body. It is about integration, embodiment, capacity, slowness, and the possibility that what we are sensing underneath may not be asking us to leave the body at all. It may be asking us to come all the way back in.